With the 2025 Reese Senior Bowl in the books, we're going to tell you which 2025 NFL draft quarterbacks helped themselves and which ones did not help themselves down in Mobile. We'll talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, offensive draft analyst over with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He is the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. Guys, thank you for tapping in with us each and every day, being our everydayers. We have a fun show recapping the entire week from Mobile for the Senior Bowl. Did the QBs help themselves all week into the game? The biggest offensive and biggest defensive risers from the week. But guys, before we get into all of that, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Keith, the quarterbacks did not help themselves down in Mobile. I will say, well, let me start here. I think after watching the game, Riley Leonard helped himself. Riley Leonard was solid throughout the week. He wasn't outstanding. Nobody wowed anybody during the week on either team. He was probably the most consistent and efficient guy for the most part. But then in the game, he looked calm. He looked ready for the moment. He was poised. He made some really good throws, getting around defenders, throwing with some anticipation. Can't really expect guys to just throw like they know who all the receivers are, like they're playing for their collegiate teams. But he was probably the best guy in the game. I think he was 6 for 7, 50, 60 yards. I don't think he threw a touchdown or anything, but he was the most effective passer. And then they pulled him at the start of the second quarter for Jaxson Dart, Keith. But that's why I want to start. I want to start with Dart. It's been a lot of chatter about Jaxson Dart. And to the point where, Keith, we were at practice. We were there all week. And I remember logging into Twitter and just seeing tweets and people posting the walkthrough throws. And I'm like, guys, that's not even 50% speed that they're going at.
Yeah.
They're just going through the motions right now before we really get going. I thought one day, I think it was that may have been day 2, Jaxson Dart was efficient. He was effective, getting the ball out quick, getting it to his first read, doing all the things he did at Ole Miss. But he was never consistent throughout the week. There were times where he turned down throws, and I think there was one moment he ran out of bounds and threw the ball in the red zone. And I'm like, what is going on? You had the flats, you had the running back in the flats and everything. He was not consistent. I don't think he helped himself, Keith. I do not think Jaxson Dart helped himself the way that it seems like a lot of the consensus on social media believes.
Yeah, I think that, DP, that for all of the listeners, right, I would say this, that whatever you came into the Senior Bowl week with the quarterbacks, you probably should leave out, right? And even I'm going to start with Riley Leonard. DP, I think what a big – which actually helped Riley Leonard was that he just finished playing football, right? And we kept talking about it because understanding the Senior Bowl, right? It's not like these offensive game plans and situations are scripted towards the quarterbacks, meaning it's not their system, right? It's the NFL team system and asking them to execute base level plays, right? And so some of those things don't apply to each and every quarterback. So sometimes you're not going to see the best version of that quarterback because it's not their system. A la if you take Jalen Hurts out of the situation that he plays in Philly and put him in a totally different situation. If you take, and we've seen how important situations have been for NFL quarterbacks, right? And their ability to revive themselves. Sam Darnold has been completely horrible until he's gotten with Kevin O'Connell, and then he became a Pro Bowl quarterback. So that's my statement is one with Riley Leonard. Secondly, to go to the Jaxson Dart, if you had a first round grade on Jaxson Dart coming in and you want to keep your first round grade, that's up to you. I don't think, and I agree with you, DP. I don't think that any quarterback made themselves a bunch of money one way or the other. So just saying that Jaxson Dart, maybe you had low expectations of Jaxson Dart and didn't think he can throw the football at all, and maybe that's why people were impressed with him. But to say that I'm going to elevate him into a first round. Now, we know all it takes is one team, right? So over here, we're not saying that Jaxson Dart won't go in the first round. That's not the conversation. All it takes is one team to believe in one player, right? And that's a wrap. What I'm saying is that if we over here at Locked On are giving you honest evaluations, we were there, we were on the sideline. You guys know we did the work before the Senior Bowl, right? And we're watching these guys at Senior Bowl for confirmations of who are they as football players. I think that it comes out as a net neutral for these guys in the sense of the fact of who they were when they came in. I believe that's what we're seeing. And I don't think this, DP, I don't think necessarily guys like Jalen, Milroe, Jaxson Dart, I don't think these were great. Some of it wasn't their fault in the sense of the fact of, like I said, it wasn't great systems for them overall. But I'll say one guy, if you want to talk about maybe he etched himself up just a little bit, it'll be Dillon Gabriel for me. Dillon Gabriel, and then the Louisville quarterback Tyler Show. One, because able to see Tyler in person, big kid, good looking kid. Well put together. You put 10 pounds.
Big hands. I think it's like almost 10-inch hands.
Yeah. He gonna be at 230. He had decent movement skills. He was willing to push the ball vertical, things like that. So I appreciated what Tyler can do. Dillon, I think he showcased that he's timing and rhythm thrower, right? You put him in a system where it's about timing. You have receivers that can get open quickly. He can get the football to them. So I think he elevated himself because I think that he started to paint a more clear picture of who he can be outside of the Oregon offense.
Yeah, I think with him, like you said, timing, rhythm, he's a well-experienced quarterback. So you kind of know what you're going to get from him. He's going to be able to, like you said, get the ball out quick, like especially the RPO game, play action pass, just quick stuff. You know what I mean? He's going to be able to really live in that realm. And we always come back to the same team in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins. You need a guy that can run that offense right behind Tua. You get another lefty that, because as most, you talk to any receiver, you start flipping quarterbacks in terms of how they throw. It's a different feel to it when a left-handed quarterback's throwing compared to a right-handed quarterback. Eye trajectory, all the stuff like that. Like, its visual path is different. So it's like you don't even have to change that for the receivers in Miami. Tyreek Hill, if he's still there, Jalen Waddle and all those guys, they still catching the left-handed pass from a Dillon Gabriel if Tua went down and everything. Then we know Tua is, I think he struggled with the hip injury, maybe the same hip after from Alabama, before, when he was coming into the league late in the season. So we'll see how everything turns out at the start of 2025. I think with Dillon, like you said, for me, it was the only thing I struggle with him is like, I wonder how much he could see when they went to 11 on 11, like the height, like I felt like he couldn't see down the field.
He is going to be one of those guys that's going to have to move to be able to throw in windows, right? Like he's not going to be able to throw directly behind the center. He's going to have to catch that gap between the and guard, right? And he may be a guy that has to get a little bit more depth in the pocket to give himself more room to be able to see. I agree with you on that.
To keep throwing some Drew Brees, tell him to watch how Drew Brees moved in the pocket. I think any team that drafts him, you got to do what you did for Bryce Young. Give him that great wall of China on the interior where he can feel comfortable stepping in between throwing lanes and finding those throwing lanes and not have to move him so much and get him out the pocket on the move so he can still throw from the pocket. I think he could be definitely a serviceable quarterback, Keith. But yeah, it just was, the Browns practice. I mean, they won the game, and I tweeted out like it looked like a national team was about to pull away during the game. And I was like, if they pull away,
a blowout.
I wasn't surprised, Keith. I was like, you didn't allow your like the offensive line was getting beat up by the national team's defensive line. The American passing attack looked lackluster. I know, like even going back to Jaxson Dart, like he had the touchdown run. I think he had the 2-point conversion throw to Isaac Tesla. And he had the flea flicker. Outside of that flea flicker, he did nothing in the passing game that really showcased why he should have the hype that he had. Like, even on the flea flicker, like, if you throw this out, throw this in front of Jack Besh, he runs underneath it, it's a touchdown. You threw it to a spot, Jack Besh then has to go up after he separates from the defense. He has to go up and come back to the ball, make a contested grab, which Jack Besh absolutely did. And we'll talk about him in the next topic. But yeah, I just the wild takes that we've seen on Twitter, and everything like that, just the week in Mobile, I think just about how the practices were one. Mike Kafka ran. It's crazy. Mike Kafka's off. And I think I was telling somebody this. Mike Kafka, the national team coach, they ran their practice like they had the better quarterbacks. Like they threw the ball.
Yeah, they did.
They had the physical thumping running backs and Damian Martinez and Ollie Gordon. They were like, yeah, no, we're letting the Canadian kid throw the football, and then the American practice, Bubba Ventrone and the Browns. I mean, it looked like the Browns offense, heavy run game. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, this doesn't really, for whether it's Jaxson Dart or Jalen Milroe, these guys aren't used to being under center. And I'm gonna be honest, this is not the time to teach them that. Let these guys just be out of shotgun, be comfortable, convert your scheme into a shotgun offense. Run similar stuff just from shotgun and let them at least be somewhat comfortable in their dropbacks. It was a weird week. Like I said, I don't think any of the quarterbacks really truly separate themselves. Shout out to Riley Leonard, Dylan Gabriel, those guys, and Tyler Show. The guys are able to help themselves a little bit, kind of answer some questions in a sense.
Yep, I agree 100% with DP. Let's keep this thing going. And what are we going to talk about? The biggest offensive risers. Yes, from the Senior Bowl, just in totality, offensive line, running back, wide receiver, quarterbacks, tight ends. We're going to talk about the guys that made themselves the most money. Who are the guys the names that you need to know coming away from the Senior Bowl? We're going to talk about that on the offensive side of the football coming up next.
As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Offensive prospects and the biggest offensive risers, Keith, we mentioned him a little bit. I mentioned him a little bit just in the first topic. Jack Bech, man, what a week he had, right? Like, first of all, him honoring his brother who passed away in that horrific terrorist attack in New Orleans on New Year's morning. Late or early New Year's morning after 12. He honored him the entire week. And you can kind of see it, man. Like he came in there not with a point to prove, but he came in there with a different mentality than everybody else. Mm-hmm. Like when the ball was in the air, I don't think anybody was better than Jack Bech the entire week on either team. And then that converted over into the game. You know what I mean? Even in the game, I think Jack Bech he caught, I think like 5 or 6 passes in the game. He had 6 catches, 68 yards, and he had a game-winning touchdown. And it's just, the name I keep seeing people bring up is Puka Nacua for Jack Bech. Yep. And I can see some of the similarities for sure. I think the strength, the ability to play from different alignments, whether you didn't play slot, Z, some X maybe, but he's probably a guy that I think now of course, we know how people value the combine, depending on where he tests. You know what I mean? It depends. It's going to really depend on how high he's moved himself. But I think he moved himself absolutely in the day 2. If anybody had a day 3 grade on him, if you came in with a 4th rounder, you probably walked out of there like, I could see a team saying, you know what, let's get him in the back of the 2nd, top of the 3rd. His hands were outstanding. Was he the best route runner and separator? No, he wasn't. But he did enough. I would say he did enough. I think he's probably the biggest offensive right. Well, no, not the biggest. He's one of the biggest because my guy, Elijah Arroyo, really he dominated a lot of the week in one-on-ones and team drills, a tight end out of Miami. But Jack Bech had a great week this week.
Yeah, DP. And I'll say this. I'm trying to just make sure I preface this right, but I've known Jack Bech been around in this proximity for a couple years. Obviously, a Louisiana kid. Obviously, he started his career at LSU, right? The physical limitations, that's always been something with Jack Bech, right? But the thing that I even bought into him out of high school, DP, was he always been a dog. Like that was always his mentality. Like he was always one of those guys that he was tough, scrappy, right, and found a way to get it done. And I think that's going to translate it from high school to college, right? Because he probably went against cornerbacks that were maybe more athletic than what he was, but he found a way to come down with the football. And I think from college to the NFL, DP, he's going to find a way to get the job done. So I just want to give him credit for that, because like that type of temperament, when we're talking about playing football and wanting to be physically dominant over people and finding a way out, that's always been Jack Bech. And I agree with you. I think he supplanted himself as a top 100 pick. You mentioned Elijah Arroyo, without a doubt, DP. One of the things that I'm going to do, I'm going to get back into the film. I feel like, and I feel like you feel the same way. With my first statement, the second statement, you may say I'm a little crazy. The first one, I believe we both have Colston Loveland as tier one, tight end one, right? But looking at this thing, I have to go back and compare Tyler Warren and Elijah Arroyo. Like that's my take. I gotta see.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
I have to see what's what, right? And I get it. Tyler Warren has been one of those buzzy names that's been quickly elevating. Everybody likes him. But independent of that, I have to, what I've seen with Elijah Arroyo, his build, how smooth he is, how fluid he is, his ability to push vertical, a natural route runner and wide receiver, just receiver, period. I have to go back and say, hey, because this may come down to a scheme thing, right? Like what scheme and usage do I want for him? Next up, I'll talk about Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon. We always talked about this, that the Senior Bowl, and even leading into the Senior Bowl, right? We were just talking about players. Like, this is your opportunity to be independent of your team. This is an I situation. This is not a team situation. This is an I situation. And I think what happened was that he reset the line just back to what you thought coming off of 2023, right? And if you watched him and if you felt like, you know what, this guy is not a first round pick, he's probably more of a third round pick, that's completely fine. And I think that he showed that, right? And I just put the bar back there. The other running back that I was like, and I think of all the small backs, DP, I may be wrong, but if you put all of the running backs sub 5'10", right, which was probably 8 of the 12 running backs. The one that stood out was SMU's running back Brashard Smith. The speed is electric, and you've seen it on the football field. It's truly in person. It matched up to how the film was. That if you give this guy a crease and he gets to the second level untouched, it's a problem for your defense because he's outrunning angles. And so I wanted to give Brashard Smith credit also.
No, 100%. I mean, going back to the Elijah Arroyo point, Keith, no, I got to go back to the film as well. And for me, I asked Mario Cristobal, why wasn't he featured more in this passing? There's no way he should have. I think he finished the season with less than 600 yards receiving. He was, at times, he wasn't even the second or third option in the passing attack for Miami. They were feeding, of course, Xavier Strepo, trying to get the ball to Jacoby George, the explosive, and Sam Brown and everything, get it to the explosive playmakers on the outside. But that receiving core was kind of undersized, and I felt like Elijah Arroyo was the perfect tight end and body type to get the ball to. And it didn't matter if it was one-on-ones from the 50 or if it was one-on-ones and 707 in the red zone. His ability to separate late in reps, his ability to catch the ball, the strength in his frame. I think he came in at 6'5.5", 251 pounds. That's NFL caliber right there. And I think to your point about the Tyler Warren thing, and I had conversations with different people while we were in Mobile. Like, people asked, like, why are you and Keith high on? So why are y'all higher on Colston Loveland than Tyler Warren? And I was like, listen, we like Tyler Warren. I said, but the thing is, when I look at Colston Loveland run routes and actually play the pass catching position, it's different. It's a different fluidity, explosiveness, and movement skills.
Yeah, DP, I think we have to get into this conversation, and we only have we have to transition real quick. But what I look for in evaluations, and I know you do the same, is you have to look at manufactured touches, right? Where they're finding ways to feed this guy the football versus this guy actually getting open due to his athletic ability. That's a big difference. That's the Treylon Burks, and I'm not saying Tyler Warren is this, but people wondering what got lost, right, with the Treylon Burks conversation. Go back to the Arkansas film. There was a lot of manufactured touches, right? If you line him up in the backfield and then throw a bubble screen to him, that's a manufactured touch, right? Yeah. And it's not promised that that's what he's going to do in the NFL. So I think it's like, and I don't know if you agree with me on that point, but that's probably the biggest point that I can make is that you have to kind of also look at what's manufactured versus in the production via that versus the production that comes via their athletic ability operating as an independent entity, right? Because we look at it from the other side that sometimes these guys are wide open and they're not getting a football field, but we still grade them well, right? It's the same reason why we were so high on Matthew Golden even come week 6, right? Before he even started getting all the production, we was like, nah, this guy's getting open. Like he can't play good football.
And to your point, Keith, it's like I've learned years ago, like I can't give the NFL coaching staffs credit, like, or just the benefit of the doubt, that faith that, okay, this versatile guy, and don't get me wrong, like Tyler Warren is a really good zone beater, and I know that's like 70% of NFL defenses, I think 75% are ran, especially in the regular season, zone coverage on primary downs, early and downs and everything, but still, yet, like, I can't just assume you guys are going to use him to the best of his ability, where I look at what was one of the things that Brock Bowers did well? He separated. He knew how to run routes and different things like that. He was like really quick twitch and explosive. I look at Colston Loveland. He runs routes like a big receiver. We watch Elijah Arroyo run routes like a big receiver, and he did pretty solid blocking as well. It's going to be more of a conversation. I know that people don't want to hear that, but we in draft season now, baby. We got to have that discussion, Keith, and we're going to have it soon. We're going to have that discussion soon, man, because, it's got to be that way.
With DP, let's flip this thing on his head, man, and we are switching. We're walking to the other sideline, right? We're going to the defensive side of the football. Honestly, my favorite side of the football, right? And we're going to talk about the biggest risers, right, from the defensive side of the football from the Senior Bowl 2025. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Guys, here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money in cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw for 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and guess what? You're cashing out. Guys, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Looking for tickets to your next big event? Maybe the last-minute tickets to the big game next week? Whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. So get ready, right? Get ready, guys. Are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Defensive prospects and some of the biggest rises, Keith. A guy in your neck of the woods, man. LSU defensive lineman Savion Jones. 6'5", 290. this dude was he had a good week of practice from what I was seeing, but in the game, like he was absolutely like he was putting guys like on notice. He had 2 big tackles for loss. He was getting in the backfield. I think he had a sack. He almost had a sack in like the third quarter. He missed it. I think Princely Human Milan, he cleaned it up. You know what I mean? He got the sack late, but the pressure, the immediate pressure came from Savion Jones. And I think it speaks to just the depth of talent in this interior defensive line class. Not saying that you want to miss out on the Mason Graham or Walter Nolan, but if you're third round and you need to improve your interior defensive line, yeah, like Savion Jones should be one of those guys. I think he made himself some money, and not just made himself some money. I think he just kind of introduced himself to the rest of the draft community. Like for people who didn't watch that defense, because like, well, Harold Perkins, it got hurt and different things of that nature. Maybe y'all don't want to watch LSU's defense. I just advise you go back to the tape and go check out Savion Jones's tape. He did good things on tape. He did good things during practice this past week. And then in the game this past weekend, Keith, again, he was wrecking that offensive line and getting in the backfield consistently, man. Big time performance for him for the week. I think he really helped put the spotlight on himself and introduce himself to the mainstream draft media and draft fan base.
Yeah, DP, I like that. I like that call out a lot. I'm talking about, and I think he's still he introduced himself, but I think he's kind of still flying under the radar as one of those scrappy, he's versatile. I feel like he could be in a multiple front defense. He's a guy, maybe he don't get you 10 sacks, right? But maybe he gets you 5 to 6 really good sacks per year, but also is always applying pressure, high effort, high motor guys that you want to throw into a heavy defensive rotation, right? And you're going to get, that you're going to get high effort out of him. So I agree with you. Definitely a big riser. I'm going to talk about Texas edge rusher Barron Terrell. I think him coming in and looking the part was huge for him because I don't know why, but just to me, he was listed at 6'4", but on film, I just thought he was closer to like 6'2", 230, like 235, right? But he came in there, he was 6'4", 255, like, well built out frame, and he moved well. When they doing the individual drills and they have to go through the cones, the bags, do all those different things, the guy had first stuff explosiveness. He had strong, violent hands. I think he can be a starting edge rusher in the NFL potentially from day one, right? And I think about guys like, if people want me to put this in context, like I like him much better than a guy like Isaiah Foskey that came out of Notre Dame and went in the second round, right? Like I have to make that statement and make that declaration. So I'm looking at Barron Sorrell, but I want to talk about one position group that you focused on in this draft class, right? And you always talked about how it was under the radar. I think it was good showing by the linebackers, just from athleticism perspective. When you look at Jeffrey Bassa, you look at Nick Martin, you look at what Eugene Asante, and then you look at Shamar James. All of those guys were fast flow, fluid, explosive. Like the athleticism was real. You was able to see it live and in person, and you was like, okay, you either have maybe a couple of those guys you can push maybe to the strong side backer. I mean, to the middle linebacker or the inside backer, but you definitely have weak side linebackers that don't mind sticking their face in there and making some plays. But I mean, you also look at what we've seen in the draft the past few years, right? With Nakobe Dean going in the third round, undersized linebacker, right? Then we have our guy who came out of Clemson, right? The Jeremiah Trotter, right? Jeremiah Trotter. Him coming out of there. There's been some undersized linebackers that have come into the NFL, but I think these guys have the instincts to match. And I just go back to it's the same situation. It's the same message. Find good situations for these guys. Like I said, you look at Patrick Queen, what he was able to do once they just, early on in his career in the Ravens and people had question marks. Then you went, got that downhill thumper, placed it next to him and allow him to do what he does best, fly around the field and make plays. So I can see that trajectory for a couple of these guys.
Yeah, Keith, the linebackers look good. I mean, they put them in some precarious situations with these shifty backs in the second group. In the one-on-ones. I was like, this really feels very jaded and slanted towards the running backs in this situation. You 240 pounds trying to guard Rashard Smith out of the backfield. I don't really know how that is helping the linebackers in this situation. But nonetheless, I mean, even like Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, he came in, nice build, good athleticism. This guy's going to be more of a spot dropper in zone coverage than a true man-to-man cover guy. And he's going to trigger downhill well in the run game. This is a good linebacker group. And there was a couple guys that were supposed to be here that actually didn't show up, like the UCLA kid that everybody was really talking about.
He could ball too. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, like good athlete and everything. Like, listen, I mean, I think I was talking to somebody. I was like, when I was watching, I didn't finish the deep dive on him, but I was like, looking at him and how fast he plays and the way he impacts the offense. It reminded me of our guy from North Carolina State last year, Peyton Wilson.
Peyton.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everything. And I was like, I could see some of that with him. He's a guy that finished the game, really helped him out a lot. And that was Arkansas edge Landon Jaxson.
Yeah.
Landon had some solid, he had some moments where you see, I see, well, he's like, 6'7" or something like that, super long arms.
Yeah, yep.
You know, and everything. Like, he has a unique build and body composition, but in the game, like I think he finished with like a sack or two in the game. Like, you know, and I think he had a strip sack on Jackson Dart, matter of fact. He had a strip sack. And I think for him, like I said, he fought through the week, kind of gained some momentum and some steam throughout the week after a first kind of rough day. And then in the game, he showed up, man. He showed up, and I like what I saw from him overall in the game, Keith. And you mentioned Jeffrey Bossa, man. I was watching him throughout practice, and this dude is like former safety converted linebacker. I think he's going to be in that running as like LB1 in this class, because teams got the chance to see him in person, see the body type. Like, what does he look like?
He looks the part. Like, he's one of the guys, DP, that I see. You know, when I had a group of those guys, I'm like, some of these guys are probably true weak side linebackers. Then other of them like have a chance to be true inside linebackers. I think Bossa has that, because I was looking at his size, and he looks to like he can even put on another 5 pounds, because he does have just his body type. It looks like he can hold it.
And I was high on him coming out of the summer. If you remember, like I had a high second round grade on him. And I was like, man, like this dude's just converted from safety not too long ago, and he's playing the position this well after walking from top of the defense to the second level. And you know, once you get that, the closer you get to the ball, the faster the action is. And he handled it well. And he had a really good week. You know, down in Mobile. It was a guy that caught my eye, Keith, was Central Arkansas's David Walker. Like, I remember watching them, and I was like, I was trying to figure out who it was. Like, I couldn't see the helmet, and everything. And I was like, and like once I realized who it was, like this kid had a productive college career, but he was making some plays, whether it was in one-on-ones, team drills. Then he had a good showing in the game as well. I just think this interior defensive line group, it's a legitimate group. Like, it's not just top heavy. Like, you know what I mean? It's not just like I said, Walter Nolan and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. It's more guys than that. And you probably can get yourself a potential starter as a rookie in the 4th round. And you know what I mean? If everything falls the way we expect it to, Keith. But I went back and I watched the tape. I want to give a shout out to Ezariah Thomas, man. He had a rough start. And I don't know. The coaches put him in some very odd situations against Tez Johnson in the slot. I didn't like it. I was like, well, this is not
his build is not to play nickel. Like, that's not his thing.
Not at all. Like, this dude's tall. He's got long arms. I'm like, yeah, he's an outside corner. You saw, I think day 2, he got his feet. He got his feet underneath him. And then day 3 of practice, you know, like he was really good. Like in man to man in the red zone, especially against, you know, you think about those bigger body guys. I think there was a lot of tweets out that the receivers on day 3 were running TikTok releases and TikTok routes. You know what I mean? And he had I think it was Kyle Williams did a bunch of foot fire and hesitation moves and all that. And he just stayed patient and stuck with him, got in the hip pocket, turned, looked for the ball, and made an interception, right? He made some good plays, and he found his footing and his rhythm throughout the week. And it was like, once you got him out the slot and put him back outside, it kind of went to what I saw on film. He is a man-to-man corner. That's where you want him to be at. Can he play zone? Yes. I think the football IQ and the communication is going to be big for him to learn how to pass off everything, stay disciplined as a deep third guy, and don't bite down on the post, pass that post to the high safety and stuff like that, and don't go chasing waterfalls like TLC would say. Like, long as he don't do those things, I think you'll be fine. But he showcased day 2 and day 3 of practice. Like, yeah, I'm more of a man-to-man corner on the outside. He likes to. I could tell he likes the soft press. That's a guy I would probably want to like work on the punch timing with him, because I think with his arm length and his body type and strength, I think this is a guy that could be a really good, bump and run press at the line of scrimmage, get hands on, disrupt timing type of defensive back, man. But him and Quincy Riley had a strong week, in Mobile, man. And like, matter of it was a big tight ends, big receivers, shifty receivers. This dude was just in the hip pocket, and he competed, man, and he made some really good plays. I really appreciated what he was able to do down in Mobile.
Yeah, I think if you need a nickel corner, you better put him on your board and high. The guy can flat out play football, DP. And I'm gonna wrap it but I'm gonna wrap it with a comp. Sebastian Castro, DP. I like what I seen, and you know he reminds me of Sidney Brown. That was drafted a couple years ago. That played. So I'm gonna go ahead and tweet that one out, DP. That's my draft comp. Sidney Brown. I like it from a body type perspective, fluid movers, thumpers, all over the field, high
same role.
Yep, same exact rule. So that's the draft comp that I'm gonna go with. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated over here. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Guys, on tomorrow's show, we are going to get into some mock drafts. Like it's post, like we get into Super Bowl week, right? It's post Senior Bowl. It's going to be some mock drafts we need to get into and see how things have changed after the Reese Senior Bowl. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.